Morpheus is back with another camera test, and this time it's in between the iPhone 10 and the Galaxy Note 8. Two of the most popular smartphone cameras on the market. I'm going to put both phones through different situations in low light and in daylight. And we'll start with the front-facing camera. The iPhone 10 has a 7 megapixel camera with an f2.2 aperture lens that records in 1080p 30 frames a second with fixed focus, whereas the Galaxy Note 8 has an 8 megapixel camera that has an f1.7 aperture lens that records video in 1440p 30 frames a second and also has autofocus for the front-facing camera. And now we're going to test it to see how the image quality looks like with both the front-facing camera as well as the image stabilization as we take a walk. So this is the 4K video recording mode for both the iPhone 10 and the Galaxy Note 8. The iPhone 10 has unlimited 4K recording to storage, whereas the Galaxy Note 8 is limited to 10 minutes. Both these cameras do have dual optical image stabilization, also in their telephoto zoom lens. So what we're going to do is stop. We're going to times to zoom, and see the image quality and the stabilization with both cameras. And again, this is the 4K 30 frames a second video shooting mode for the iPhone 10 and the Galaxy Note 8. What we're going to do is test the stabilization in video by taking a run. So we're going to test the stabilization mode again in 4K for both phones, this time in ×2 zoom, and see how it comes out. So this is the 1080p 30 frames a second video recording mode between the iPhone 10 and the Galaxy Note 8. And again, we're just testing out to see the image quality in video as well as the stabilization. So this is the 4K video recording mode on both phones, but in this particular instance, the iPhone 10 is recording in 4K 60 frames a second. And again, it has the ability to shoot at 4K 60 frames a second, unlimited recording to storage. And this is the impressive optimization with the new A11 Bionic chip. And we're going to see how the image quality looks like against the Galaxy Note 8 in 4K 30 frames a second. So this is the 4K video shooting modes in 30 frames a second on the iPhone 10 and the Galaxy Note 8. And we're just testing out the low light image quality as well as the stabilization. And both these cameras do have a telephoto zoom lens, and both the main and the telephoto zoom lens both have dual optical image stabilization. So what we're going to do is stop. We're going to times to zoom, and test out the video quality and the stabilization. And this is the 4K 60 frames a second video recording mode on the iPhone 10 versus the 4K 30 frames a second video recording mode against the Galaxy Note 8. And again, just testing out the image quality as well as stabilization in low light. So this is the 1080p 30 frames a second video recording mode on the iPhone 10 and the Galaxy Note 8. And again, just testing out the image quality in low light as well as the image stabilization. And what we're going to do is now stop. We're going to times to zoom. So now we are testing out the front-facing video recording mode on the iPhone 10 and the Galaxy Note 8. The iPhone 10 recording in 1080p 30 frames a second, and the Galaxy Note 8 recording in 1440p 30 frames a second. Both are looking okay. Initially, it's looking like the iPhone 10 has better front-facing low light, but we'll have to wait and test and see. So let's take a look at the rear camera specifications of both the iPhone 10 and the Galaxy Note 8. The iPhone 10 has a dual 12 megapixel camera with a wide f1.8 aperture lens, optical image stabilization, face detection autofocus, and a secondary telephoto zoom lens with an f2.4 aperture, optical image stabilization, and hybrid autofocus. The Galaxy Note 8 has a dual 12 megapixel lens with a wide f1.7 aperture lens, 1.4 micron pixel size, dual pixel autofocus, optical image stabilization, and a secondary telephoto zoom lens as an f2.4 aperture lens, 1.0 micron pixel size, optical image stabilization, as well as hybrid autofocus. All the settings for these smartphones have been set to automatic, so let's skip right into the images. So this first low light image of both these phones in selfie mode, I would say that the Galaxy Note 8 is definitely doing a better job. You can see the image. There is less noise on the iPhone 10, but there's no real visible image of myself where you can actually see myself a lot better on the Galaxy Note 8. There's less of a crop factor. I prefer what I'm seeing on the Galaxy Note 8, but let me know in the comment section below which one is your favorite. This next image here of the flashlight selfie, again, the crop factor on the iPhone 10 makes it less usable. There is more noise on there as well. Although that the light balance on there is a lot better, you do have a slightly sharper image. Both images are not particularly sharp per se, but I am preferring what I'm seeing on the Galaxy Note 8, a much brighter and a much more sharper image. Again, let me know which image you prefer in the comment section below. This next low light image of the cabinet, both are pretty much looking exactly the same. I couldn't tell much of a difference. There is a slightly warmer color temperature on the iPhone 10, but really it's just down to personal preference. Again, let me know which one you prefer in the comment section below. This next image of the cabinet with the flashlight, although that the sharpness and the brightness on the Galaxy Note 8 is a lot better, I do prefer the slow sync flash on the iPhone 10 where the light balance is a lot better. It's really down to personal preference. Let me know in the comments which one you prefer. I do prefer the light balance on the iPhone 10, even though that the Galaxy Note 8 is given a much more bright and sharper image. This next image of the Europe car sign, you are seeing a slightly more vibrant and much more punchy image on the Galaxy Note 8. It is ever so slightly sharper. The iPhone is going for a much more neutral, flatter color profile, which might be preferred, but I am liking the much more punchy and much more sharper image on the Galaxy Note 8. You are getting a much more cooler color temperature, whereas you see on the left side of the Galaxy Note 8, it does have a red hue and a much more warmer cast, but it's really just down to personal preference, so let me know which one you prefer. Utilizing the telephoto zoom on both lenses with optical image stabilization, characteristics are pretty much the same as the previous image. You are getting a slightly sharper image on the Galaxy Note 8, which is the image I do prefer in this, but let me know which one you prefer out of the two, compared to the iPhone going for a much more neutral, flatter color profile. This next image, the iPhone 10 is looking to have the brighter picture, but it's compromised by having the highlights and the exposure slightly blown out if you do look closer to where the light images are, but you do get a brighter image. There is more noise on there, but I do prefer how the details have been retained better on the Galaxy Note 8. Both are struggling with the yellow underline underneath the Europe car sign. Again, it's really down to personal preference. In this particular instance, I do prefer the Galaxy Note 8, although the iPhone 10 is producing a slightly brighter image, but the exposure and the highlights are slightly blown out. Again, utilizing a telephoto zoom lens on both cameras, the yellows have now been recovered on both the Europe car signs. The highlights and exposures on the iPhone 10 have been recovered, so it looks like the telephoto zoom lens is doing a better job there. It's really down to personal preference, but in this instance, I am leaning more to the iPhone 10, but let me know which one you prefer. And here's a daylight shot, and this is a real test of dynamic range, and in this particular image, I really do prefer the dynamic range performance on the iPhone 10. It's really been able to keep the horizon clear and manage the light coming towards it. The color profile on the Galaxy Note 8 is definitely much more punchy and much more vibrant, but in this particular image, although the iPhone is going for a much more neutral color profile, the performance in the dynamic range is slightly better on the iPhone 10. Taking a look at this next image of the statue, the dynamic range performance on the iPhone 10 is really well done. You can actually see more detail of the image of the statue as well as the rocks in terms of preserving the details and being able to visibly see. The Galaxy Note 8 did struggle. The dynamic range and the colors of the blue in the sky are a little bit more punchy on there, but I'm definitely leaning towards what I'm seeing more on the iPhone 10. This next image of the flowers, you can see that there is more vibrancy and a slightly brighter image of the Galaxy Note 8 compared to the iPhone, which is going for a much more neutral color profile. It's really down to personal preference. I really do like the punchy colors that I'm seeing on there. It is probably more color accurate in terms of the greens, whereas the Galaxy Note 8 is more vibrant and probably more color accurate to the purple that I'm seeing on there. But again, it's down to personal preference, so let me know which one you prefer. Both have done a good job in terms of the skin tone representation. I would say you get a slightly sharper image on the iPhone 10 in terms of the crop factor of the iPhone 10, and also the blown out highlights and exposure around my face and the surroundings makes makes it much more usable on the Galaxy Note 8 as you do get a wider field of view and better exposure in the highlights as well. It's really down to personal preference. I'm leaning more towards the Galaxy Note 8. So this image is both these cameras with the rare depth of field selfie effect. The Galaxy Note 8 is known as selective focus, whereas on the iPhone 10 is portrait lighting mode. Both really do struggle here in terms of the edge detection is really soft and is really aggressive on both. I think they need a bit more work. I'm still preferring the overall experience on the Galaxy Note 8 because of the wider field of view. There is potential with the portrait mode selfie on the iPhone 10 as you do get different modes to select through, such as the contour lighting, the studio lighting, and the studio mono lighting. So once it does improve and come out of beta, it really does have potential to improve. Whereas with the selective focus, you only have the ability to turn it on and off in terms of the background depth of field, but it's really down to personal preference. I do like the potential of the iPhone 10 with this particular feature. So this last image here, you can see the background depth of field effect from the main cameras, and with the lighting conditions, it was a really difficult one for both. It's very subtle on the iPhone 10, almost to the fact that it didn't seem like it was working, but it was really subtle. Whereas with the Galaxy Note 8, it's much more aggressive, but it is producing a slightly softer image. But it's really down to what you prefer in terms of your images. With live focus in the name, as you can see that you do have control over the background depth of field before and after the fact, where you can adjust the background blur intensity to give it the look that you want. And also you do have dual capture, where you're able to use the wide angle camera to preserve the image and have two images in one and switch in between which one you like, which I really do like the overall experience. And again, with the natural portrait mode on the iPhone 10, you do have different lighting modes that you can select, such as the contour lighting, which works really well, and also the stage mono and the stage lighting, which is in beta. And when it works really well. It has the potential to be better, but it can be hit and miss. It's really down to personal preference which experience you prefer. So what's my overall conclusion to this camera test between the Galaxy Note 8 and the iPhone 10? Both these smartphones probably have the most versatile cameras on any smartphone on the market. The video shooting frame rates on the iPhone 10 are really impressive. The 4K 60 frames a second, as well as the full high definition 240 frames a second in slow motion, really makes it versatile in terms of the video shooting modes. The overall low light video performance on the Galaxy Note 8 is absolutely stellar and still one of the best I've seen on any smartphone. A much cleaner image in low light, and it's really hard to be beaten at the moment, which is really good for low light video performance. Both these rear cameras are really good in terms of the dynamic range and detail, but the iPhone 10 seems to be doing a better job, which is great to see. But both are really good in that respect, and the overall control you get with live focus is amazing. But there's great potential to be seen with the studio lighting effects that you get with the portrait mode on the iPhone 10, hoping that when it comes out of beta it will be a much better experience. Hope you guys enjoyed this camera test. Let me know in the comment section below which is your favorite smartphone camera out of these two. Consider subscribing for more camera tests and comparisons like this. And again, I'm your host Ben on the Lover of Tech channel, signing out, and trust me, you will see me next time.